Kaufman. It's just a cough, man.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for hanging out with us. Second time talking NBA of this day, and there are a couple more shows on the way as we get a little bit closer to lock. This time around, it is the Yahoo NBA Wednesday Night Live show. Greg Ehrenberg, I am Adam Kaufman. Happy to be with you for about a half hour. By all means, get your questions in if you've got them, if you're watching along, be it on YouTube or obviously on Twitter as well, wherever you're finding us. We greatly appreciate it. And Greg, we got a pretty interesting slate, 11 games. So obviously it's loaded. You got some big names returning, whether it's certainly Kyrie Irving for Brooklyn, ready for his season debut for the Nets. You've got Jason Tatum coming back for a pretty healthy looking Celtics for the first time. And really what's been, 3-4 weeks, and stars across the league are out as other teams deal with injuries and COVID-related absences as well. So what are you zeroing in on tonight before we start to go position by position?
Yeah, so I mean, Kyrie Irving coming back, that's obviously massive. And it actually matters more on Yahoo than it does on other sites because, I look at some of the pricing, say, on FanDuel and DraftKings when it comes to Kyrie Irving, and I'm just not interested. He's only $22 on Yahoo. There's a huge range of outcomes in terms of what we could expect from his playing time. But at a $22 salary, I'm certainly interested. He's not projected to be popular today, and I think he's a really good GPP option.
What about in terms of the guys that we're used to seeing, every single night? For instance, among some of the studs, and I always do this at the tops of these shows, just, rattling off some of the names that are available tonight, some in better spots than others, obviously. There's you got the Joker, Nick Jokic, you got Joel Embiid, Domantas Sabonis, Luka Doncic, Bradley Beal, Trae Young, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Rudy Gay. List goes on and on, obviously. They're not all in great spots. Domantas Sabonis, who was a major flop last night, looks like he's in a really good position on the other side of that Brooklyn game. What are you expecting?
Yeah, so I think this is probably, at least for Yahoo, given what the pricing is. And I've made a build so far. I have my projections in Fantasy Cruncher, ran some lineups to see where they come out. It's a lot of mid-range builds. So in terms of guys I'm paying up for, I get to LaMelo Ball. I mentioned Kyrie Irving being a good contrarian option. And it's not like although I should rephrase, he's not actually a pay-up option. Typically, we've seen in the past Kyrie Irving be expensive on Yahoo. He's only $22. If you go back to last year, Kyrie was a guy who was $47, $48, $49 on Yahoo. So we are not sure what the minutes are going to look like. Steve Nash said he's not going to play 36 minutes. Doesn't mean he can't play 34 minutes, though. Right. And I also think you just have to look at him at a massive salary discount, not being a popular play, and being a guy who's normally a pay-up option that just isn't today. Then we also have the Bucks situation, no Giannis Antetokounmpo. So there's a lot more usage goes to guys like Chris Middleton, Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday's been priced up. Chris Middleton isn't. So I do think there's a lot of appealing plays in the mid-range that kind of makes it so when I'm building my lineups, I don't get as much stars and scrubs on this slate as much as I get to a lot of guys who I think should be priced a little bit higher, or just players who are in, really good value situations, like a Daniel Gafford, for instance, at $23 with Montrezl Harrell up for the Wizards. There's a lot of guys in like that $20 to $30 range that I like a whole bunch.
Let's dive into the positions actually in just a moment. First, I want to remind people, of course, we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy throughout this NBA season to bring you some great offers. You can check out our exclusive limited time offer. Gets you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You just click the link below to redeem. It is just that simple. If you need immediate access, no problem. Email support@awesemo.com. We'll get you all set up. You can also receive a free $10 credit plus an additional $25 when you make your first deposit using promo code Yahoo10. That is Yahoo10. Tonight, Yahoo is featuring their $50,000 NBA Baller Contest payouts going to more than 1/3 of entries. Make sure you enter that one. Remember to use our Yahoo DFS projections and tools to help you win big, too. So a lot of great reasons, obviously, to join up to take advantage. Now, I know our side panel there goes guards, forwards, and so on. Let's break it down even just a little bit further. Let's go point guards and then shooting guards. Really help the people out, narrow things down a little bit. We'll start with these point guards again. Greg, really big names obviously are available, whether it's Luka, Trae Young. Last looked, he was questionable. James Harden, who just the Nets in general. I know you certainly made a case for Kyrie Irving given his pricing, and I understand it. This is just a team I'm weary of giving any real attention to, because I don't know what this is going to look like with those three guys on the floor together for the first time this year. But obviously he is in that mix there. You've got Steph Curry, who was not very good last night, LaMelo Ball, Drew Holiday, DeJounte Murray, pardon me. Those are the studs. That's the upper echelon. Although, as you noted before, you can find a lot of value. You can find some good, cheaper options. You can go down to Anthony Simons. You can look at Kiefer Sykes, what he did last night, what he's done the last couple of games. Bare minimum, he's $10. Raul Neto, $10. Saban Lee, $10. So where are you looking at point guards?
Yeah, so I have not really played much of Kiefer Sykes, to my detriment, over the last couple of slates. He was really good last night. I thought somebody like Torrey Craig yesterday was a really good pivot off of Kiefer Sykes. I just wasn't sure what could we expect from the minutes for some of these cheap guys when it comes to Indiana Pacers. But they have so many players who are out now. So yesterday, I just mentioned I thought that, Torrey Craig potentially get more minutes, could take some minutes from Kiefer Sykes. Torrey Craig gets hurt during last night's game. So there that goes out, right out the door. And then Kiefer Sykes just ends up playing all the minutes and just absolutely crushes from a fantasy standpoint. So it didn't go my way. But now I just find Sykes so difficult to get away from. Karis LeVert is out, TJ Warren's out, Keelan Martin's out, Jeremy Lamb, Torrey Craig, Malcolm Brogdon, Gogo Bitadze, TJ McConnell, Chris Duarte, Isaiah Jackson. All these guys are expected to be out today. We're looking at a really condensed rotation for the Indiana Pacers, given how well Sykes has played. I think he's really locked himself into a pretty substantial starting role for the Pacers in the interim. Given his price point, it's difficult for me to stay away from him. Do I think he's a good real-life player? No, probably not. There's a reason that he's 28 years old and has basically never played in the NBA, and it's because he was never a standout before then. I don't think he's going to have a role at the end of the year either. But the Pacers don't have anybody else to go to for now. So considering his $10 price point, he's one of my favorite value options.
So those studs, no one really jumps out at you?
If I had to roster one, it would be LaMelo Ball. He's the one I've projected the highest. He's at $39, or at least highest in terms of points per dollar on the high end. Some of the other guys, Trae Young, he's looked really good lately. He's also dealing with a back injury. You mentioned he's questionable to play. So it's hard for me to really back Trae Young without more information as of now, because he's not 100%. He might not even end up playing today. As for some of the other guys on the high end, it's just not my favorite position to pay up at. You talked about James Harden being a point guard who's available for us on this slate. The introduction of Kyrie Irving to the Nets, it just has to take away shots from Kevin Durant and James Harden. It doesn't mean that those guys can't have massive games, because they're all really good NBA players, but the likeliness of it happening goes down a pretty good amount with Kyrie Irving in the mix. So if I'm playing one of the stars from the Nets, it's Kyrie Irving today for pricing reasons.
So as far as, Kyrie, he's listed here as a shooting guard as well, and about 33 projected points on Yahoo. As you mentioned, he's cheaper, obviously, he's $30. Bradley Beal is really the studliest of the studs, if you will, for the shooting guard position. After that, you have Jaylen Brown. He's coming off a 50 burger, but Jason Tatum's back in the lineup for Boston. You have Donovan Mitchell, Tyler Hero, who looks like he's in a great spot because it seems like everybody and their mother is out for the Heat tonight. And then you get down to like Cade Cunningham and Tyrese Halliburton, guys like that. I don't know. Do you want to go all the way down to a guy like Korkmaz, who obviously has been very, very good in his opportunities here of late for Philadelphia, or is there someone a little bit more expensive that I mentioned that you'd prefer?
Yeah, so overall, my favorite shooting guard right now on Yahoo is Tyler Hero. You mentioned before, this is a team, Jimmy Butler in particular, has not been able to stay healthy this year. Jimmy Butler, you get like a couple of good games, like, all right, Butler's back, and then he's hurt again. Oh, look, Butler, he left the game with an ankle injury. He's really been, it's funny, the narratives, right? Because we make fun of Anthony Davis constantly for his injury woes. Guy can't stay on the court, constantly visits the locker room. The same exact thing is with Jimmy Butler, but for whatever reason, Jimmy Butler is regarded as some tough guy in the NBA. His injury concerns are no different than what Anthony Davis is. That aside, no Jimmy Butler, no, I'll read off all the injuries for the Heat. Marcus Garrett, Markieff Morris, Adonis Haslem, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Eric Coleman, Jimmy Butler, Gabe Vincent, Dwayne Dedman, Victor Oladipo, Keze Okpala. There are not very many healthy bodies for the Miami Heat, so Kyle Lowry's going to have to play a bigger role, but he's been priced up. And then Tyler Hero is going to have to play a bigger role. But considering that the nature of the injury to Jimmy Butler, that he got hurt during the last game and that there isn't as much time for the pricing to get caught up, Only a $26 salary for Tyler Hero. He's going to play more minutes. He's going to get all the usage he can handle. So he's my favorite shooting guard play overall on Yahoo.
If anybody has any thoughts, questions, concerns, constructive criticisms, whatever it may be, get it in. We're checking it out here on the YouTube page. Obviously, our guy, our producer, Awesemo, calling for more likes. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you're watching along on the Awesemo YouTube page. We greatly appreciate it, obviously, and you want to be notified. Set those notifications so you can be alerted when shows go live. There are a few more coming up over the course of the day today to really get you all set for NBAs. We get closer to lock. Steven says, hey, good to see you, Cough, but happy birthday goes to the bearded Adam. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, it's bearded Adam's actual birthday, and he will be on a little bit later on. So look forward to that as well. Small forwards. Let's go to the small forwards here. And again, it's just littered by absences, by guys that are unavailable, COVID injury, whatever it may be, that some of the studs don't necessarily jump out the way they normally would. Obviously, you have Jason Tatum coming back. He had COVID. He's been out the last 4 games, hasn't played since Christmas Day. He is at the top of the heap among the small forwards, projected for about 40 points, but he's $46. I mean, he is far and away the most expensive at the SF, if you will. Beyond that, then it's Chris Middleton, it's Anthony Edwards, it's Norman Powell, OG Anunoby, guys like that. Again, you might be inclined to pay down with so many, like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are out for Portland. So is it going to be Nasir Little? You know, you got Denny for Washington. You got Kevin Huerter for Atlanta. You got some of these cheaper options that are certainly an appealing spot. So where are you looking?
Yeah, my favorite overall small forward right now is Chris Middleton. Not all that complicated. There's no Giannis Antetokounmpo. Drew Holiday is viable, but I think Chris Middleton's the much superior option, at least for Yahoo, because we have Drew Holiday priced at $39. Chris Middleton only at $26. So you look at the numbers this year for the Milwaukee Bucks when you take Giannis off the court. Middleton leads the team with 32.8% usage rate. He scores 46.73 Yahoo fantasy points per 36 minutes. He's like $10 too cheap. Maybe he might even be $15 too cheap. And he's going to be popular for small forwards on Yahoo for good reason. I think if you play cash games on Yahoo, you absolutely have to play Chris Middleton. Even in tournaments, though, I want to get him in a lot of my builds. I have him in over 50% of my lineups in my Yahoo build right now. It's just a massive void to fill against the Toronto team that's getting a little bit healthier as of late, but has still been banged up for a lot of the season. So Middleton, to me, is the premier small forward on Yahoo. You mentioned Denny. Denny's been playing a bigger role for the Washington Wizards just because of all the guys that are out for them as well. We see no Aaron Holiday, no Montrezl Harrell, just a bunch of guys out for Washington, also health and safety protocols. So Denny started last game. He played 40 minutes. That's a really substantial role for a guy who's only $14. So I think Chris Middleton in the middle tier, overall my favorite small forward. If you're saving money, Denny's my favorite.
We're about 2.5 hours from lock. So obviously projections, rankings, ownership percentages, all of it, you know, there's going to be an evolution as we get a little bit closer to lock, as there always is, and guys are ruled in, ruled out, all of that. But as of right now, 2 of the top 3 projected rostered players are at that small forward position, guys that we just talked about. Chris Middleton, obviously your favorite at $26, projected to be in about 40% of lineups, and even a little bit higher than that at about 42, Nasir Little. He's just, is he too cheap? Is that what it comes down to? He's $13 in this matchup for Portland against Miami.
I mean, he's certainly a really good value play just because, once again, all the guys that are out for Portland today, going over Portland's injury report, there's no CJ McCollum. Damian Lillard's going to be shut down, it looks like, for a little bit of time here. He's had the abdominal injury dating back to the Olympics. So we're looking at Dame now. He's had this injury for months now and hasn't gotten better. There's no reason to think it's going to get better at any point this year. If the Blazers continue to struggle, I think there's a pretty good chance maybe McCollum gets moved to the trade deadline. They shut down Damian Lillard. Whole lot of options there. As for the front court with the Portland Trail Blazers, Cody Zeller's out. Larry Nance Jr. is doubtful. With both those guys not in the mix, we just have to assume Nasir Little is going to be playing bigger minutes. So I do think Nasir Little at $13 is a really good value option, but I do prefer Denny if we're looking at somebody in the same price range.
No one, Greg, is projected to be rostered more or is in a better spot at the power forward position than, as I mentioned off the top of the show, someone who really flopped yesterday, and that's Domantas Sabonis. He's projected for about 50 points, very close to it anyway. He's $39. Kevin Durant also in a good spot, but we've already talked about, you know, our sort of, excuse me, conflicted feelings about the the Brooklyn game with Kyrie Irving coming back. You also have Pascal Siakam, you have Miles Bridges, Tobias Harris, Kyle Kuzma, who, broke out recently. Guys like that. But again, sort of, it starts at the top, maybe it ends at the top. Domantas Sabonis, what's your feeling on him?
Yeah, I think that he should play better today than he did yesterday. I don't know that I like him quite as much as the field, but he is my favorite pay up option at $39 at the power forward position. And you look at the recent games for Sabonis. The other thing, there was just a low scoring game against the Knicks last night. There was, 104-94 was the total score. So it was not a game with a whole lot of possessions in it. We look at the other games that Sabonis has been involved in lately: 58 fantasy points against Cleveland, 56 against Chicago, 50 against Charlotte. He's going to bounce back. And the team is still so shorthanded. We were talking before when it came to Kiefer Sykes, with no Karis LeVert, no Malcolm Brogdon, no TJ McConnell, no Chris Duarte. There just aren't players to create offense for the Indiana Pacers. Ultimately, that onus is going to fall on Domantas Sabonis. Last night's game, whatever, write it off. Doesn't really mean all that much to me. He should be much better today. The Nets defense has been better than expected, but still, opportunity is everything. And there's a whole bunch of players out for the Pacers.
You could pay down. You can make a case for it, obviously, at this position. And maybe you want Sabonis, then you pay down somewhere else as well. Marvin Bagley Jr. is $10. Devin Vassell is $13. Maxi Kleber, $10. Royce O'Neal, $10. All these guys, especially relative to their salary, are in really good spots. Do you have a favorite among the value plays?
Let's see. So looking at some of the cheaper power forwards, not necessarily as punts, because think about the overall structure on Yahoo. We have small forward, we have power forward, and the forward position. So we could play multiple of these forward guys, and there's also the utility spot. And we talked about some of these guys at small forward that are really good value plays. Denny Avdia, Nasir Little, two of the ones that stand out. So ultimately, if we're looking at some of these cheap power forwards, we need somebody who's going to match those guys in terms of projection, fantasy points. And there's just nobody that's close to me. I think Marvin Bagley is worth getting exposure to at $10, but his minutes haven't really been there. Even in recent starts, 24 minutes last game against the Lakers, the game before against the Heat, 20 minutes. Sure, if you give Marvin Bagley 22 minutes like I do, he scores about a fantasy point per minute. You're looking at around 22 fantasy points for Marvin Bagley. It's good for $10, but it's not as good as when we're talking about guys like Denny and Nasir Little, where it's reasonable to project them for around 30 fantasy points at the same salary. So I don't really look at the cheap end of the power forward range and really gravitate towards any of those guys. I'd rather get to Tobias Harris, Kyle Kuzma, Domantas Sabonis, just pay up a little bit more.
Center position's interesting because you've got, I don't know, maybe as much depth as you have at any other position aside from maybe point guard tonight. There's Nick Jokic, there's Joel Embiid, there's Rudy Gobert, assuming he plays, Clint Capella. Then you've got like Miles Turner, Yusuf Nurkic in a really good spot. He's going to be popular. Daniel Gafford, you mentioned him before, as you get kind of that next tier with Karl Anthony Towns, Christian Wood, guys like that. Who's most appealing to you among the bigs?
Yeah, so we'll talk about in different price ranges. Overall, the answer is going to be Daniel Gafford and Bobby Portis. I think they're the best two center options on Yahoo. But if I'm just looking at the entire center spot and in general, if I need to pay up for somebody today, the answer is Jokic, and it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's Nikola Jokic, right? He's been crushing this year from a fantasy perspective. I get, all right, a couple of games ago, he had a wonky game against Houston where the game was a blowout. His minutes were a little limited. Beyond that, you could basically pencil in Jokic. He's scoring 50 plus fantasy points, even 60 to 70 on some nights. But we also have to consider the Utah Jazz injury situation, where the Jazz are typically a pretty difficult matchup. But for today, Rudy Gobert is questionable. Bojan Bogdanovic is questionable. Royce O'Neal is questionable. Hassan Whiteside is questionable. They've Udoka Azubuike, who's hardly played for them. He was the first round pick from last year. He's questionable to play. If there's a situation where there is no Gobert and Whiteside, I guess they're starting Rudy Gay at center against Nikola Jokic, which he is just way too big for Rudy Gay to handle. So due to this Jazz injury situation, I think this is a matchup against the Jazz, which is typically very difficult. That could be really easy, and people just won't really weigh as heavily all the injuries that the Jazz are dealing with. So we have to see what happens with Gobert and Whiteside. But if those guys are out, there is nobody to match up against Jokic.
Jay asking in the chat if we're locking in 3 Blazers tonight. I would assume anyway that the most, he's talking about the most popular rostered ones in terms of projections. Those are Little, Simons, and Nurkic, or Nurkic, pardon me. Those 3 in particular are, you can go down. Norman Powell's another one who's going to be reasonably popular. He's certainly in a good spot, but What do you think? Are you going to devote that much of your lineup to Portland?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have a lot of good value options here. We talked about Nasir Little already. There's going to be a lot of usage that goes to Norman Powell with no McCollum and Lillard in there. Nurkic stands to benefit at center. Although with that said, there's still centers I prefer to Nurkic. I really liked Nurkic the other day when he first was coming back from health and safety protocols because nobody played him. He was really cheap, basically everywhere, FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo, and nobody wanted to play him. And I thought he looked like a really good option. $24 for Nurkic, certainly worth getting to. But I do have guys like Bobby Portis at $24 projected for more fantasy points. Daniel Gafford, $23 projected for more fantasy points. So Nurkic is just one of the guys for me, the real primary players at center. It's Jokic if I'm paying up, or they're Gafford or Portis. Gafford because of all the injuries that Washington's dealing with, extra minutes with no Montrezl Harrell. And then Bobby Portis just sees a really big usage bump with no Giannis on the court.
So our guy Butthole Jenkins is in the chat, as he always is, says my sneaky low owned play is Anthony Simons tonight. Now, as we know, Butthole here is basically a parody account, and Simons is going to be a top 5 rostered player in all likelihood. But who does jump out to you as a sneaky low owned play tonight?
Okay, here's what I'll do. I could sort the amount of exposure I have to some of these players and compare it to our current ownership projections. It's Kyrie Irving for me. We're looking at, he's projected to be in 13% of lineups today. I have him more than double that in the current build I have. And it was just what we were talking about before. There's a wide range of outcomes with Kyrie Irving. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for tournaments. For cash games, it's something you'd always be wary of. But for tournament purposes, I care way more about the ceiling than anything else. And we're never going to get a chance to roster Kyrie Irving at $22 again. It's just not going to exist. He's somebody who on the low end was $40 last year. On the high end, he was over $50. So a massively underpriced Kyrie Irving. I'll shoot for the upside there. And I think he's one of the better points per dollar plays and one of the players with more upside at not a lot of expected ownership.
Steven asking about Hassan Whiteside for Utah with Rudy Gobert with the questionable tag.
Well, Whiteside's questionable as well. So we need a couple of things to go right here. We need Whiteside to play. We need Rudy Gobert to be out, which, just doing math. Let's say if Rudy Gobert is 50-50 to play, Hassan Whiteside is 50-50 to play, which I assume is about right considering the questionable tag. You've got a 25% outcome that Hassan Whiteside is the starting center with Rudy Gobert not in the mix. He's one of the obvious top play, maybe the top play on the slate in that scenario. We just can't guarantee that's going to be the case at this point in time. Good thing Yahoo does have late swap, and it's easy enough to make any changes if there is news that comes out after lock.
Is there a particular game or games that you're targeting?
Not really on an 11-game slate, because I don't need to try to maximize my upside by stacking an individual game.
Yeah.
But the team, I mean, we've talked about Portland. There's all the guys that are out for them, so they make a whole lot of sense. Same goes for Washington. Denny Avdia, Daniel Gafford, Kyle Kuzma. They're all really strong plays. KCP to a lesser extent. The Indiana Pacers, they have a lot of guys out. It's really just whichever team is currently dealing with health and safety issues. Whichever team has players with COVID, there's value there. I want to target the teams where there's players out with COVID. Individual games, not as much. Teams, yes, just whoever's shorthanded.
So Miami as well, then, with all those guys out?
Yeah, we talked about Tyler here, although a lot of the other guys have kind of already been appropriately priced up because Miami's has had guys out for an extended period of time now. So there was a point where Yurt7 was min price on Yahoo. He's $23 now. Is he unplayable at $23? No, but he's just kind of appropriately priced.
We've got a final few minutes left here. If anyone has any questions, get them in. Obviously, we see you guys. We thank you for being with us here, watching along on the YouTube page, on Twitter as well. Want to remind you, of course, we've got some great offers going on. You can ring in the new year. Here we are, 2022. 2 incredible offers on Awesemo Plus Platinum for only $20. You can get full access to all Awesemo Plus tools and data for 22 days using the promo code 2022. Easy enough to remember, 2022. Looking to take down slates all year long? Well, use promo code HAPPY22 for 20% off a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. 2 great deals for access to everything you need, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, boom bust, so much more. These offers, they end very soon, January 7th. We are hours away, and that is specifically at 11:59 evening Central Time as well. So get locked in before it's too late. Promo code 2022 for 22 days. Happy 22 for a full year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Visit awesemo.com/promos or follow the links in the description below to activate. We have Alex in the chat shouting out the Lakers, team that he likes. Obviously, that's not going to help anybody out tonight. Looking ahead to just what's in store tonight, I guess for anyone joined us late, just breaking down your favorite studs, your favorite value plays, guys that jump out at you the most, on top of obviously some of that sort of cross-pollination with Kyrie Irving we were just talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of overall pay-up options, LaMelo Ball, I think, is a good option at $39, a little bit underpriced on Yahoo. And in addition to that, also projected only being about 8% of the field's lineup. So I think that he makes sense as a contrarian option. Kyrie Irving as well, $22. Just to reiterate what I said before, we've got Kyrie Irving, typically not priced at $22. A lot of uncertainty with what his role is going to be, but I also don't think there's going to be a point in time where we're going to be able to roster him again for $22. Nikola Jokic, somebody else to keep our eyes on, just because of that situation going up against the Utah Jazz. Well, not just because of that. Jokic, obviously a crazy good fantasy producer, but also could be playing against the Jazz with no available big men because Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside are both questionable play. So it could be Rudy Gay starting at center for the Jazz. So those are my favorite overall pay-up options on the slate if I'm just kind of going around the horn.
What about the cheaper guys?
Yeah, so cheaper guys, just say prices, say sub $20.
Sure.
Denny Avdia, we talked about him before. There's a lot of guys out for Washington, so he makes a whole lot of sense. Then we've also got, scrolling through some of the lineups here, Kiefer Sykes, talked about him. He's going to be a really prominent player across the industry on every site today. There's a lot of players out for the Pacers, and I have not really played Kiefer Sykes at a clip that I should have in hindsight, but I'm going to have to today. One thing that is different about the Pacers today than was going into yesterday is Torrey Craig got hurt during the game. Without Torrey Craig, there's not as many guys on the Indiana Pacers, and already a shorthanded team became more shorthanded. Available players for the Pacers today: Sabonis, Turner, Sykes, Dwayne Washington, Justin Holiday, O'Shea Brissett. And then you get to the end of the bench where it's Justin Anderson, Lance Stevenson, Terry Taylor. Not a lot of players to get minutes to. So the minutes for Sykes, it's not going to maintain when guys like Brogdon and LeVert are back. But for now, he's going to have to play big minutes.
Crazy that in 2022, we even still get to mention Lance Stevenson, the Indiana Pacers, in the same sentence.
Yeah, and so Lance Stevenson, I've never seen somebody who's better created a career out of becoming a meme, right? Because do you know how old Lance Stevenson is?
I mean, I bet he's not that old.
He's not. He came into the league when he was very young. Yeah, I think he got drafted when he was 19.
Is he like 31, something like that?
Yeah. So he's 31, but he hasn't had a good year in the NBA since like 2015.
Right.
So he's been
at least a handful of years.
He's been washed up for a considerable amount of time, but I think he just keeps getting gigs because of memes of him blowing in LeBron's ear. So Lance Stevenson, he could play a few minutes for the Pacers here because he did last game and they're shorthanded. He's not going to be DFS relevant, I don't think. But it is, to your point, it is funny that he continues to come around.
So we've got more shows to follow a little bit later on, coming up at 4:45 in only about 15 minutes. You'll have the NBA Deeper Dive, goes till 6 Eastern. That will be Alex and Bearded Adam. Make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Greg is coming back for NBA Live Before Lock from 6 to 7:30. He will be with my buddy Lindquist as well. Eric and I will be together talking a little NFL on Friday, so that'll be a good time. Then at 8 to 9, it's PGA Live Before Lock with Eric and Ben. So should be a good time with that. Make sure you guys tune in. A few more shows on the way over the course of the day. Get you all set up for lineups locking in the NBA and preparing you for all the late swaps and all the options and everything that you have to have available to you on a robust, interesting slate tonight. 11 games across the association. Our thanks to our producer, Mike Awesemo, getting the job done. Second time working with him today, and always a pleasure. And of course, Greg Ehrenberg, who is he's just warming up that seat. He's got a whole lot more hoops talk on the way this evening. Greg, pleasure, man. Catch you next time.
Oh yeah, and I like you think I'm just getting the seat warm as if I haven't been sitting in the same seat without having moved since like 10 a.m. this morning. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Good luck. Like and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, stretch those legs, get the blood flowing, man.